company, as well as the Spanish Cobra. They are revising the megawatts that need to be generated. If you recall, the treaty that was signed between South Africa and the DRC was for us to have a take-off agreement of 2,500 of megawatts of electricity. But now they want us to increase it to 5,000. So the energy sector is full of action. But having said that, in terms of commitments, you are aware that in April of this year, 56 billion rand worth of private sector investment into the renewable sector was approved by government, and it is being rolled out now. And today in the session, there was a commitment, in fact, by Bidvest to put 1 billion rand in Richards Bay for LPG. So all these projects indicate that there's going to be a lot of action in the energy sector. While speaking about gas, there is a gas master plan that we are busy finalizing as a department, together with a gas master plan for the whole of the SADC region, in order to create that gas market, not only for South Africa, but for the SADC region as a whole. These are some of the things that came out today, which indicates that there's a lot of work that has to be done. So we're looking forward to energy contributing a significant amount of the president's goals of bringing in $100 billion investment into the South African economy. Well, also too, arising from that is that going forward, we have to work very closely with all government departments in ensuring that what comes out of here can be effectively coordinated and implemented by government departments. So we're very excited as a Department of Energy and as a government that this collaboration, this partnership with the private sector will be able to do a great deal of positive contribution towards alleviating of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. So those were some of the things that came out, which makes us to be very excited that we are going to move forward, ensuring that energy continues to be a catalyst for economic growth and development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Khatebe. I'm now going to invite the Minister responsible for Mineral Resources, Minister Gwede Mantashe.
Thank you, Mvumvu. Thank you, Mvumvu, Minister Mkonyane. Thank you very much. Mining is back to stability, very stable, very positive. Today, more than 100 billion rand was announced today by mining companies only, which means that they're back into South Africa. We're going to see growth in investment. What contributed to that is for us to ensure that we remove all policy and regulatory uncertainty. When we completed the charter and we pulled back the amendments on the MPRDA, we created an environment of certainty. That is what investors want to hear. Number two, the fact that we are engaging, we are a sector in dialogue, is helping us, assuring one another of the disagreement are sorted out, all agreements are enhanced, and we are a sector in dialogue. Mining has raised a number of issues that we must attend to. One of them, many of them are mainly the administered prices. The price of electricity, which is contributing to a lot of manganese and chrome being beneficiated in Malaysia because of the price of electricity, the price of transport, rail, the price of port, all those issues are issues that we must attend to if we want a boom in mining. Thirdly, is the importance of the department processing applications on time. We're working on the electronic processing of application so that there are less hiccups when people apply. And you will have noticed that in the new charter, we've been silent on exploration. we don't demand any BE partnership on exploration, because our discussion indicated that allow mining companies to explore. Don't put a burden of BE requirements, because exploration is not generation of wealth, is looking for minerals. Once they find the minerals, then they must comply with the requirement of 30% ownership. That is welcomed by the industry, and quite a number of companies have begun to explore, and they've got exploration licenses. Thank you very much. Those are the few issues. There are quite a number of them. It's quite an exciting sector.
Thank you very much, Minister Mantashe. The next minister to follow would be the Minister for Water and Sanitation, Minister Kukile Nkwinti.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, there were three things emphasized: time, rate of return to investment, and simplification of processes to access opportunities in government. Those are the three main things in the context of water use authorization. Because water use authorization takes such a long time, the shortest time period that is taken to process an application for water use is 144 days. And the most complex one that involves, for example, mining, when you have to process that, 3 departments are involved. It's environment, water and sanitation, and mineral resources. It takes 300 days to process that application. So that is the context. And therefore, we agreed, there was a huge interest in this one, that on the 10th of November, we're meeting with the sector at the CSIR. It has impact on the intention of this conference, drawing and attracting investment into the water sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Nkwinti. We have the Development Bank of Southern Africa. I'm going to invite the representative just to share with yourselves on what they have put as a means to attract private participation on our infrastructure, particularly at local government level.
Thank you very much. My name is Mohan Vivekanandan. I'm the Group Executive for Client Coverage. Thank you. From the Development Bank of Southern Africa. In partnership with the Green Climate Fund, the DBSA is very proud to announce the formation of the Climate Finance Facility. It's a 1.3 billion rand facility to promote long-term investments by the private sector in climate financing, which would include green energy, but also in water and sanitation, energy efficiency, and other such areas. The goal of this facility, it really speaks to the concept of blended financing, which means the facility stands ready to support commercial banks and other private investors by providing them with long-term tenor, so long tenor, 15 years plus of rand-based financing that can be used in South Africa and in other countries using the rand as their currency. And our goal is that this 1.3 billion rands will in turn multiply and create 5 billion rands or more of investments in the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DBSA. Clap hands. Okay. Thank you very much, DBSA. Any takers, questions, comments? EWN, you find this afternoon, you're tired, eh? Any other takers? Please introduce yourself and the media house you're coming from. Number 1, number 2, and that would be it. Then we go back to plenary. Okay, let's start with her because she's nearer. Let me give you this one.
Okay, Skhomoso Modise from EWN. Mineral resources, constant issues of safety, right? And how they may be a deterrence to investors, or, from investment coming in here. Last week I did a story with regards to 2 inquiries that you have launched at 2 mines that we've seen almost 10 deaths at both. Did that come out in any way? And what were some of the reassurances that you gave with, around safety, as well as, holding business accountable to ensuring safety at these operations? And then water, we have the 2 issues big right now in the media with regards to Giyani as well as the Vaal. Those 2, have they come out in any way? Were they addressed in any way? But also how you gave reassurance in terms of what you're going to be doing going forward.
Sunitha Menon from Business Day. Minister Mantashe, in terms of the mining investments, how much of these are new investments, or were these investments already in the pipeline?
Health and safety has always been a major issue in mining, and mining investors know that. It's a difficult, dirty, dangerous, diseased industry. And when you go there knowing that there are those risks inherent in mining. But what is never reported is that for 10 years, from 2007 to 2016, fatalities dropped dramatically in the mining industry, from 219 fatalities in 2007 to 73 fatalities in 2016. There was a spike in 2017 which went to 88. So that is a dramatic improvement in terms of safety, but each death is one too much. That's why we talk about 0 fatality as an objective. But there's a lot of work happening. Last week, you will remember that we had a 2-day health and safety conference where we're applying our minds as a sector on health and safety issues. So that is a major issue. Half the time we talk about fatalities, we hardly talk about health. People who die as a result of dust-related diseases. TB was second biggest population of people with TB. And if you look even in South Africa, major TB prevalent areas will be mining areas. Putswa and so forth and so forth. That is what we're doing on health and safety. So health and safety is on our focus. We want to ensure that this year we don't go over the 88. We come down, we must continue improvement, because our aim is to have 0 fatality in mining. Now, on the issue, what was the second question? Oh, the investment. The investment is a combination of new and what is already in the pipeline. Investment is investment if, for example, a company invests money to extend the life of a mine or expand a mine. It's not an old investment, it's new investment in the sense that it is money put in extending the life of a mine, it is money put in extending and increasing the operations. So that is the kind of investment, but many of those investments are new. We're opening a number of new mines. For example, let me give you an example. When you announce 1,100 retrenchments, that's headline in all the newspapers. But when we open 3 mines in a week, Shondoni, Emakazeni, Exxaro, and you go and open another one in Evander, nobody reports about that. It's not exciting. But the reality of the matter, when you open those new mines, you are cancelling the retrenched workers in terms of the numbers of workers in the industry. That is the situation we're in. Many of those investments are in the pipeline. Others are pledged. They are coming to the stream. Others are projected. There are quite a number that are not declared today.
Gax?
Yes. No, and none of those was asked at all. There was no question about the Vaal River system or Giyani. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Nkwinti. Colleagues, we're going to have another session tomorrow. From here, we're going back to plenary, and all cameras and journalists and those that are tweeting, the President is going to be arriving at plenary with all our ministers who are leading the teams in the 9 work streams. We will work through their offices to have follow-up sessions starting on Sunday until next week, Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Okay, media colleagues, as indicated by the Minister, if we can all make our way to the plenary for the presidential investment announcement. But yeah, no, we'll communicate about that.
That's your problem.
But tell you we are late. On the podium already.
So concurrent with the infrastructure pieces that you need to also be developing those digital businesses, those competitive businesses for today's world. And that is not just about business in South Africa. That's about South Africa serving the continent and, in fact, the world. Because on the cloud, when you come up with a great idea and that next big innovation on AWS, you're allowed to go global, you know, literally in minutes. And so that next unicorn could come out of a great idea that starts up in South Africa and then goes global. The other part of it that I think is really important to us is AWS for over a decade now has been the platform of choice for startups. And we believe that having that vibrant, well-educated workforce here to deliver new businesses is both important from the digital economy perspective, but also very important from an employment and jobs perspective. Pick whatever statistic you like. Around the world, small and medium enterprises usually provide the bulk of all employment inside of a country.
And they do here.
Yeah.
Infrastructure and digital infrastructure, are they different things?
They're not really different things, and I mean, I fully agree with what has just been said. I think all I'm just saying is, when you say middle class, when you say well-educated and so on, that has to come from somewhere.
You've got to get there.
You've got to get there. And that can only come from growth. So, as I said, I'm not suggesting that we do anything in series. I'm saying that there is a fundamental launching pad for all that is required to really turn into a digital economy. And in my view, you really have to have at least an economy functioning at a particular level of growth, because that then spurns the middle class, that spurns the consumers, it then spurns the education, invest, and so on. So the two are not mutually exclusive. I belong to the world that says exactly what you've just said. We spend our whole lives expanding on a Pan-African basis and even beyond that. But what is absolutely fundamental is that I think insufficient GDP growth is inescapable.
Phumzile, I met some guys earlier on who gave me a whole lot of statistics about SMEs and the credit gap, and I just wonder whether this kind of digital digital leap could provide some of the way we could resolve that, because it is, I think it's 66% of employment is in this sector. Phumzile, when companies look to invest here, they have to deal with a whole different series of metrics, and they have to think about how they're going to make the investment work going forward. When do they look at demographics? How important is the demographic story when they're looking at the opportunity that is here in South Africa? Because the demographics, while they may not work now because of the unemployment level, if that can be kick-started, there's potentially an enormous consumer base here, a young, enormous consumer base here.
Well, a lot of companies do consider the demographics, and that's probably one of the attractions of South Africa, being that we're a significant economy within a much larger continent which has got very good prospects. But also, I think any investor coming into South Africa, by design, if one considers the legislation which actually supports small, medium enterprises, legislation that supports transformation, preferential procurement, as players come into this country and understand the requirements and the best way of doing business, you will find that they will look and ensure that there are partnerships and allocations within those key parts of the economy. I think the one thing that has been said by a lot of your small, medium enterprises, which in my mind is very justifiable, is that from a South African context, a lot of corporates have not necessarily known how to do business with small, medium enterprises. And what we have learned, I think a number of initiatives which have been brought about by various instances has been collaboration between your larger corporates as well as your SMEs. I think I can cite a number of examples which came about as a result of the Competition Commission, the Massmart Supply Development Fund, AB InBev, SAB Miller, as well as various others. And I think there's a lot of learning and benefit we can have if we study and take, from a South African perspective, some of the good learnings from the Germanys and the France of this world, where you find that there's far greater collaboration between big business and small business. And I think whilst that evolution to those who are smaller enterprises seems to be a bit slow, there is a lot of thinking in that frame within corporates, but I do think what we also need in South Africa will be the funding solutions to also enable those SMEs to succeed.
Trevor, one of the things that Germany has, Phumzile brings up Germany, it has the Sparkassen, it has a group of banks that were effectively there to support SMEs, the Mittelstand. That was their entire objective. Is that what South Africa needs as well? How do we solve the funding gap that exists for SMEs? Because if an economy is to thrive, they need to thrive. They are the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that feed into the big OEMs that come here and manufacture. You've only got to look at the car sector here, which has a very successful history. How do we make these companies work better?
Well, you know, as part of the front end, there are a number of state-owned and state-supported initiatives. This has been part of the democratic project. It's gone through various phases, but there are institutions now. I think it's also going to be important, given the economic geography of South Africa, for there to be partnership with the other banks, and I think that it's going to be quite important to be able to set the performance criteria so that you can have evaluation of what's taking place. The issues of access are actually fundamentally important, and I've been quite horrified by the interest rates. And sometimes small businesses are prepared to accept the higher interest rates because access seems to be the first hurdle to cross. Yeah. These are issues in the works. I'm sure that Minister Patel and Minister Zulu are very mindful of these kinds of issues. We need to sharpen the instruments that exist. We need to sharpen the agencies that exist. And part of it, I think, is also the ability and the speed with which there's take-up from small businesses themselves. I think the Mittelstand in Germany is now very much, it's taken on a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
And you need to build that here and ensure that the spirit of enterprise is enriched in our country as well. I mean, it's not the survivalists. I think it's getting through from small to medium. That is a big challenge in South Africa.
Yeah, that valley, I think they talk about it as being sort of the valley of death in the middle as you get from small to medium size. Mr. President, I can't quite believe we're running out of time, but apparently we are. Let me just kind of wrap things up by talking a little bit about South Africa as a gateway to the rest of Africa and the investment flow that is going to go both ways. How does South Africa take advantage of the huge demographic, resource, opportunity that exists on this continent? How does it become that gateway for companies to come in? You have two of your envoys here. If they can bring companies here that can then leverage South Africa and leverage into the rest of the African economy, that's got to be a huge advantage.
Well, it is a huge advantage as it is now. The rest of the continent is our largest trading partner as a country right now. As a continent, it has overtaken what we would have regarded as our traditional trading partners in the past, your Germany's, US, and even your China. So we're trading with Africa. But we're also saying is that Africa is on the move. It's a continent that is changing, transforming, and the decision by African heads of state to inaugurate a free trade area for the continent is a huge boost for South African companies, because therein lies opportunities for a 3.4 trillion market with a population which is 1.2 billion and growing exponentially, and a huge portion of that population are young people who are on the move, who want, to embrace the fourth industrial revolution, who want smart goods. And South Africa is the manufacturing base and reservoir of the continent. So in the end, South Africa is a gateway. And this we don't say proudly or arrogantly, because that is what even many leaders on the continent generally accept. And they say to us that South Africa, come into your own, play the role that we want you to play, lead us when it comes to infrastructure, i.e., the African Union decided that it is South Africa that must build the trains for the continent. So the factory that we opened yesterday already has a huge market for the African continent, because the body that governs our fortunes, the AU on the continent, says South Africa must play a key role in this. On infrastructure, it must play a key role. And in a number of areas, South Africa is seen as the base in which a number of companies can base their operations and use it as a springboard. And we do this with a great humility that we are as South Africa, not trying to over-dominate other countries, but working forever and continuously in cooperation with them and taking their needs and concerns into account as we work together to promote our continent. So South Africa is well positioned, and we want to be key players in this market. But even as we do so, we want to promote other countries as well, because the more other countries live up to what we have achieved. For instance, in the auto sector, there are quite a few countries that we are working with so that they too can begin to make components for the auto sector, because competition will also be good for us as South Africa, because then we can accede to higher levels of great performance. So Africa is our home, the rest of the continent is our market, and that is where we are going to see tremendous growth. And the announcement that was made by Ashish today to make, say, smartphones, basing it here in South Africa means that it's using this as an anchor, as a springboard for the entire African market. And we would invite everyone to see South Africa as playing that key role because of the positioning that we have at the tip of the continent. So South Africa, here we go into the rest of the continent to make the continent better and to grow better as well. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a moment, I'm going to hand it back over to Lorata, who will be taking us on to our next segment. But if you could stay in your seats, we're going to make this all happen incredibly smoothly. But Mr. President, the panel, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Mr. Infrastructure?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Guy, and I hope for many of those who've been watching at home via Bloomberg that a lot of the questions that they've had, the curiosity, are going to be telling us about their announcements. You know who you are. If you could make your way forward, I'll just call you by company name, and then whilst that happens, I'll just let you know a little bit about tomorrow's activity. So could the representative from Sumitomo make his way up? From Sunrail? From NAMSA, together with the chief executives from the automotive sector, from Nestle, from Procter & Gamble, from Aspen, McDonald's, Vodacom, Aqua Power, and the BRICS New Development Bank. If you could all, ladies and gentlemen, make your way forward, and you'll be received to be informed what happens next. As they do so, I mentioned earlier on that the president, in as much as he's on an investment drive, he's on a fitness drive. I think that deserves an applause. And even more so if you've ever seen the statistics on South Africa's obesity levels. So let's support the president as he tries to resolve one of our other problems. He's going on walkabout in Soweto tomorrow, a 2-kilometer walk in the historic Vilakazi Street section of Soweto. Some of you have signed up to join the president on this walk. Please note that buses will leave the Sandton Convention Center tomorrow between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. Those buses will be leaving here between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. You're bulking. Are you bulking? Who thinks it's important to make this nation healthier? That wasn't a very convincing one. Who thinks it's important to make this nation healthier? So for the 500 delegates who have registered to join the president on walkabout, please be aware that the buses will be leaving the Sandton Convention Center tomorrow, Saturday morning, between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. There are no parking facilities for you in the area, so make sure that you're here on time and enjoy your walk with the president. Earlier on in the plenary, in the opening plenary, we introduced to you some of the companies. We also said to you these companies have been vetted and they have passed all the stringent due diligence requirements. We introduced you to some of them. Now we're going to introduce you to the rest of them. And during the breakaway sessions, others were also introduced to you. For those of you who couldn't attend every breakaway session, I'll tell you more about what happened there. But right now, we're going to introduce you to the remaining companies that have committed to join President Cyril Ramaphosa and his team in growing this economy and creating jobs for our people. We're going to start off with 3 announcements from the transport sector, covering both vehicles, parts, and infrastructure, so the entire value chain in this space. And we're going to begin with Mr. Ryutiro Ota from Sumitomo. Not that you need it, Mr. Otto, but let me just remind you, it's 1 minute. That goes for everyone.
His Excellency President Ramaphosa, Honorable Minister, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ryutaro Ota from Sumitomo Rubber, South Africa. I'm CFO. My company is a part of Sumitomo Rubber Industries, a Japanese company, the 5th largest tire company in the world, known in Dunlop brand, Falken, and Srixon. Last year, we successfully completed first phase of investment for PC passenger car tires, 1.1 billion. Today, I explain a second phase of investment. That is for truck bus radial tires, 970 million investment in Ladysmith. Thank you very much. And the intention is to set up new truck bus radial tires in Ladysmith. And period is from 2016 to 19. And the reasonable investment, we have three. One is big demand is sitting in South Africa and African continent. Second is it is better to produce in Africa than import from other countries in profit point of view. And third, we have an intention to supply truck bus tires to OE manufacturers. Okay? And economic impact, we have three. One is additional employment. 325 new permanent employment will be created until 2019. And in addition, more than 1,000 job opportunities will be created, including indirect job opportunities by contractor. And in addition, we have economic impact in technical skill development and support to local industry. And this investment is heavily supported by automotive incentive scheme. Thank you very much, President. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
President. Thank you very much, Sumitomo, for your nearly 1 billion rands of investment pledges. You saw the president whispering to me earlier on. So over and above being a president, he doubles up as a television floor manager. And he says, Lerato, maybe move this way so that we can take better pictures. So please meet me here. Ms. Inga Mulder from Sunrail, please join us on stage. And stand here.
As instructed. Good afternoon, everybody. The President, thank you for this opportunity. Sunrail is investing 9.5 billion rands in a project in the Eastern Cape where the economic benefits will be the most needed. This project is 96 kilometers of a greenfields road that we are building, which includes 2 mega bridges. The Mtsentu Bridge will be the highest bridge in Africa and in the Southern Hemisphere. The Msikaba Bridge will be the longest cable stay bridge in Africa and the 10th longest in the world. That's just to stage South Africa's engineering talent. This project will also create 8,000 job opportunities, permanent, full-time. It will also create estimate of 16 to 20,000 indirect jobs. For the economy of the Eastern Cape, it will contribute 4.5 billion rand per annum to that province. Thank you very much.
No, Inga? Yes. Next, I'd like to invite Andrew Kirby of the National Association of Automobile Manufacturers of South Africa, colloquially known as NAAMSA, plus the delegation of CEOs from the auto sector comprising the following companies: BMW, Nissan, Ford, VW, Toyota, and Mercedes, because as they make their pledge, they'll also be committing it on paper through a signing ceremony. But Andrew Kirby, can you come and facilitate and lead us in this particular gesture?
Mr. President, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you our investment plans on behalf of the South African automotive Manufacturing Association. We've been engaging with some fairly robust discussions with Mr. Davies and his team, Labour, our component manufacturers, and of course ourselves being a private business, to establish a long-range strategy that looks at what vision we can look at to grow our businesses and make a significant contribution in South Africa. We're referring to this as the South African Master Plan, and encompasses the period from 2021 to 2035. May seem like a long period of time, but this, for us in our segment, basically is 2 model life cycles. So it incorporates some very ambitious aspirational targets of more than doubling our local manufacturing volumes to achieve 1% of global manufacturing, significantly increasing local content, increasing employment, making significant contributions in our value chain, and overall, this is obviously going to be underpinned by some good, well thought through industrial policy. And Mr. Davies will make some more detailed announcements on that later, but we are very confident that this will form the platform for us to invest in South Africa and support the reindustrialization of our country. Unequivocally, all of the multinationals are committed to long-term investing in South Africa and to drive the development of a manufacturing base that can be a catalyst for continued industrialization growth and sustainable development. We'll not be making announcements as each one of our OEMs because we are confined by the global schedules for investment announcements, but as each one of us, being BMW, Ford, Isuzu, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Toyota, and Volkswagen, we will be investing over 40 billion rand in the next 5 years. This will be focused on new model introductions, significant additional local content, and strengthening our supply base in South Africa, and of course bringing in new advanced manufacturing technology. With this increase in local content, we'll be able to also create additional jobs, and we foresee that at least another 18,000 jobs will be created within the OEMs and OEM suppliers. If one takes into account the indirect jobs that will also be created, this will be over 54,000 jobs. At the same time, because of the additional local content, we'll be increasing the purchase of locally manufactured parts and components in South Africa by an additional 25 billion rand per year. This will increase our local content on average to 42% and significantly enhance our competitiveness and our opportunity to grow our business in South Africa, Africa, and abroad. Right now, we are exporting to 149 countries around the world, and we're very proud of the fact that we now compete on the global stage as a manufacturing base. In addition, we recognize that transformation is a key component to being able to provide equitable growth, and we want to make meaningful change. So we've also embarked on a very ambitious multi-billion rand fund, which we're referring to as the OEM Transformation Fund, to help drive the transformation of our value chain and create black-owned enterprises in our value chain. So I think with the investment and the fund, we'd like to make a small contribution towards helping to stimulate the economy, grow and reindustrialize South Africa, and make a stronger contribution. Thank you very much.
That is really fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. The commitment is valued.
Thank you very much. If I can call on my fellow colleagues to just sign our combined pledge.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Abbott from BMW South Africa.
Hi, I'm Abi Khotle from Mercedes-Benz South Africa.
And Mike Whitfield from Nissan Motor Company.
Neil Hill representing Ford Motor Company of Southern Africa.
I'm Celestine Lovu from Isuzu Motors South Africa.
And I head up Toyota South Africa, and I'll be signing on behalf of South Africa. We don't have Volkswagen with us, but Thomas Schaefer has already signed.
Thank you very much. Andrew Kirby, I'm just going to forgive you there because you were really speaking on behalf of quite a big group. But ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, we need to be as succinct as possible, 1 minute apiece, please. We're moving on to the next 3 announcements, and they're coming from executives and leaders in the fast-moving consumer goods sector, the FMCG sector, covering food and pharmaceuticals alike. And we're going to start off with the contributions made by Nestlé, being represented by Mr. Ravi Pillay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm Ravi Pillay from Nestlé. On the analogy of marathons, this is Nestlé's 102nd year in the country, and 95% of products produced are very local, 65% of local procurement from raw materials, working with 200 farmers and 13 plants in 5 municipalities spread across the country. In terms of our investment itself, it's part of the process of regular capital expenditure focusing on capacity. This year we can commit to 663 million rand, and this investment touches on green technologies, capacity and maintenance, also aimed at bolstering the brand resonance that many of you are familiar with, like Maggi, Milo, Nespresso, Cremora, Tex, Bar One, KitKat, Nestum, and Rick Coffee, and Nescafe, of course. Mr. President, this investment also is on the back of a 2016 investment that was made in Escort, where we invested 1.2 billion to increase the coffee production capacity of Nestlé on the continent, basically positioning it as a hub to push for exports northwards. And this was also made possible by very creative and we think useful incentives supplied by the DTI of the 12I, and also in light of that, the foresight made was to ensure that we're investing in municipalities that can help provide predictable and reliable infrastructure. As we discussed in past occasions, Minister, with the DTI, COGTA, and various other government departments, we have come a long way to make resources more predictable and reliable so that we can be competitive and retain investment and, of course, attract more investment. On that note, just to also say that we also, as Nestlé South Africa, in the newly constituted way in which we operate in Africa, Johannesburg has been chosen as the regional headquarters for a section of Africa controlling 23 countries. So for us, that is a testament to the confidence of the infrastructure that would come, of course, with I think some efficient movement of people in the continent as well. But we've raised that with Minister Davies on a separate occasion. Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to invite Mr. Faisal Sabswari from Procter & Gamble.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished guests, good afternoon. I represent Procter & Gamble here. We are a 180-year-old company, one of the world's leading consumer goods companies. South Africa being one of our newer markets because we only entered after 1994. We employ directly 3,000 people here, and we work on brands that you know and hopefully love, like Ariel and Pampers and Always Sanitary Protection and Gillette and Vicks. And I'm here to talk about Always Sanitary Protection. We are going to, yes, I am. You know, we are incredibly interested in Always Sanitary Protection because we feel that it helps women on their journey to womanhood. Every year, we reach 2/3 of the school-going girls in South Africa, and we talk to them about puberty education so that on their journey to womanhood, they don't skip school, and we can ensure that they keep participating in their education and become proud and confident participants as they grow up. To that end, I really want to thank you because yesterday the Finance Minister announced a 0 rating on VAT for sanitary protection, which shows your support. We, as I said, we employ 3,000 people here. We are about to increase that by 30% because we are putting in an always sanitary protection manufacturing facility for the first time ever. Until now, although we are market leaders, it's on an import basis. Not anymore. In February, we are going to inaugurate a new facility at our Johannesburg plant. It's going to produce always in South Africa. And we are very proud of this. We are also upgrading our Pampers facility. And we, in closing, would like to thank the South African government. And I want to thank our partners at DTI who help us so much in making this possible. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the girl child, I'd like to say thank you. I'd now like to invite Mr. Greg Solomon from McDonald's also to address us. McDonald's is very well known to South Africans, and if you've got kids, that Happy Meal, the Happy Meal and the toy.
Well, I'm not going to sing for you then, but ladies and gentlemen, President, it's great to see you. Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my board members that are sitting here in the audience today, we started off with McDonald's 23 years ago. We opened up our first restaurant in Blackheath. It took us 15 years to get to our first 100 restaurants. In the last 5 years, we doubled up, and in the next 5 years, we will double up again. We serve 8 million customers every single month, almost, I would say, a quarter of the population on a monthly basis. And so this investment will be a 3 billion rand investment over the next 5 years. It will create another 7,000 job opportunities to create an infrastructure of 20,000 people that work for McDonald's. Just under 79% of all our supply chain is locally sourced, and I won't be quoting that indirect investment today as well. McDonald's prides itself, lastly, with growing talent within. We have a hamburger and hospitality university over the next accredited, and over the next 5 years we will put 12,000 people through this academia, and we'll do our part for education as well. It's a privilege to announce this to you and be part of the success of this great country.
See you, President. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to invite Mr. Stavros Nicolaou from Aspen also to come and tell us about their commitments.
Thank you, Honourable President, Honourable Deputy Ministers and Ministers, distinguished colleagues. It gives me great pleasure to make this announcement on behalf of Aspen Pharmacare. Aspen is a homegrown South African company, 2 decades old, started off in a 2-bedroom house on the Berea in Durban. Today, 2 decades later, we are firmly entrenched still in South Africa, but have operations in over 50 markets globally and manufacturing plants across 6 continents. The announcement we'd like to make today is a 3.4 billion rand capital investment in Port Elizabeth, Eastern Cape, one of the most economically challenged regions of our country. So the benefits will be obvious to the PE and broader Eastern Cape catchment area. Also worth mentioning is this investment is going to provide an anesthetic sterile capability for our country, turning Port Elizabeth into one of the most important and biggest anesthetic manufacturing sites or hubs globally. Anesthetics, very complex technologies. When you go under the surgeon's knife, you want to make sure you wake up afterwards. Great vote of confidence in our country and in Aspen that we will be making anesthetics complex pharmaceutical molecules for the world. Furthermore, this investment of 3.4 billion is the single largest pharmaceutical investment ever in our country. That is significant because we are not well known as a pharmaceutical destination. And I think this provides opportunities and showcases the diversity in industrialization that our country can achieve, working together with Ministers Patel and Davies' departments. As I take my seat, can I just lastly say that anesthetics will not only save lives, but furthermore will boost confidence in South Africa's scientific capabilities. Thanks very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Stavros Nicolaou. I still have quite a few commitments to announce, but may I ask you to join me in giving a warm South African welcome to our guest, one of the world's leading investment pioneers, the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma. We continue with our commitments, and please welcome Shamil Joosub, the Chief Executive of Vodacom.
Honorable President, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Vodacom's been operating in South Africa now for 24 years. We've invested over 140 billion into our network in South Africa. And what the commitments that government has made in terms of the allocation of spectrum in 4G and 5G in March next year and in 2020, we feel confident to confirm that we will be investing 50 billion rand over the next 5 years in telecoms in South Africa. We feel that this is an important milestone because I think 5G will give us the ability as a country to spring ahead. And really, behind all of this is really the need to make sure that every citizen has access to data and has access to broadband. And I think 5G will give us the ability to emulate what can be done with fiber. So this investment will go into 4G, 5G, as well as fiber, and will also have the impact of creating thousands of jobs, but also creating new industries. And I think we'll see a lot of new industries coming up that will help SMEs and the rest of the country as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vodacom. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Paddy Padmanathan from Aqua Power.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be here representing Aqua Power, a company that is focused on generating electricity and producing desalinated water in 11 countries. In South Africa, we have been generating electricity at Bokport as a 40% shareholder in a 7.3 billion rand investment already. And within the next 6 weeks, within the next 6 weeks, we should be going into construction on one project and pretty quickly thereafter on another one. Redstone project, 11.3 billion rand investment, concentrated solar power plant again. We very strongly support the inclusive development that South Africa encourages. In this Redstone project, we will be directly benefiting 40,000 people who live around this particular project site through a 16% shareholding that they will have in this business itself. The returns on the investment, together with the community development contributions, will deliver over 2.7 billion rand to these communities over the next 20 years. In Canisia, we will be going into construction before the end of this year, hopefully, 17.4 billion rand investment. Here again, we have got community involvement, approximately 1.7 billion of benefits to the community over the next 20 years. These are both very large projects. Typically, these projects involve 4,000 plus or minus people in construction phase over a period of 3.5 years. And then once constructed, we then have 350 to 400 people directly involved, and obviously there is a supply chain that benefits from that. So in very simple terms, in summary, 28.7 billion Rand investment over the next 3.5 years. We thank South Africa for the trust and for the welcome that we have had. We're very proud to be part of your development. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm so delighted to make it here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, often we know that what commercial banks are hesitant to do, development finance institutions will do in the interest of a nation, especially when it comes to big build projects. And so now I'm going to tell you about what the Industrial Development Corporation is contributing to the investment drive by approving projects in the manufacturing space and supporting value-added services and sectors or companies within the value-added services sectors. And in partnerships with their counterparties, the IDC would like us to tell you that they are going to contribute an estimated 3.6 billion South African rands that will help to elevate investments in the country. They will not have a representative coming up, but please can we acknowledge the IDC's contribution. Now, within that vein, I'd like to introduce to you two executives representing the BRICS New Development Bank. They are Mr. Xian Tzu and Mr. Leslie Marstorp.
Mr. President, good to see you again. You will recall during the BRICS summit in July that President Kamath had a meeting with you, and you sent both of us from Shanghai to represent him here. Mr. Xian Tzu is the Chief Operations Officer who's ultimately responsible for delivering the bankable projects which we will announce now. The bank to date have, this year in 2018, we have completed $6.5 billion of investments. Only $500 million of that number has been in South Africa. Next year, that number will increase fourfold to $2 billion. And this is in line with the pledge that Mr. Kamath made with you at the BRICS summit. $2 billion at 14.31 translates to about 29 billion Rand for South Africa next year. I'll ask my colleague, Mr. Xian Tzu, to just say something about the sectors in which these are likely to be deployed. But as I do that, the final point I'd like to make is that the bank 6 weeks ago, just after the BRICS summit, achieved one of the highest international credit ratings at AA+, which is just one notch below the highest at AAA, which will significantly enhance our ability to raise fresh capital from the international capital markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity. As you said in your keynote speech this morning, I think that you indicated the critical importance of developing infrastructure. So as a bank, I think that serving South Africa along with other BRIC countries, we set a very ambitious goal. We want to provide financial support next year at the level of $2 billion to the key infrastructure sectors, such as transport, renewable energy, water and sanitation, and social infrastructure. We think that this is a high goal, can be achievable, because we see the sense of urgency in developing quickly the key infrastructure to support the economy. So with that, we're very proud we are here, but also we appreciate support from the government, from the market, from private sector, so we can together build up infrastructure for South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, BRICS New Development Bank. And then, as I said earlier on, we know that during the breakaway sessions, some other commitments and pledges were made, but because you couldn't be in different places at the same time, you wouldn't be aware unless you were in that session. So please allow me to read out the collective contributions that have been announced during the breakaway sessions. Allow me to tell you how it all went down, and then you can applaud. So collectively, 10 billion rands has been contributed in the manufacturing space. It is by Adcock Ingram and Bosch Rexroth. In agro-processing and agriculture, it is into food. In mining and mineral beneficiation, it's Komatsu. In water infrastructure, it's Kevali Chemicals. In energy, it's Bidvest Tank Terminals. In the area of innovation and ICT, it's MultiChoice. In the area of venture capital, private equity, and entrepreneurship, we have seen Japan's Tokio Marines invest in Hollard Insurance, and in the green economy, the Development Bank of Southern Africa will be coming through the Green Climate Fund. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, as we've been saying, if you want to find out more, the guidelines of investments, how you can go about it, please speak to the representatives of SA Invest. They have a stand in the foyer, or you can look through your conference packs and find out who to get in touch with. But there have been some big numbers spoken of today. All of these numbers have been checked, double-checked. All of these companies have been vetted, and this is productive capital that is going to help the president and his team do what they believe is best for South Africa, Southern Africa, and the continent at large. So congratulations. So without further ado, Mr. President, may I invite you to come and address us and just give us your thoughts synthesized from the conversations we've had today and how we move forward as a nation. Your Excellency, the President.
Thank you, Program Director Lerato Mbele Roberts. As we now draw to a close with this inaugural investment conference, I do really honestly want to express my profound gratitude to all of you who have participated here, and also the demonstration of interest and enthusiasm that we've all displayed in this landmark event. And what I have been hearing from many of you who have been here all day is that this is an investment conference like no other, with its own South African characteristics, and thank you very much for being here. And my good friend, my new friend, who has already been introduced, Jack Ma, I'd like to acknowledge your presence here and thank you for having heeded our call. Jack, you might not know, you are the quintessential Tumamina candidate, because I asked you to come and you said, Mr. President, send me, and now you are here. Thank you very much. Jack and I met on the steps of the World Economic Forum in the cold climate of Davos in Switzerland, and I just saw this man being followed by a horde of people. They were just thronging behind him, and I had to sort of get out of his way because I was afraid of being run over. But as I did that, he and I locked eyes. Our eyes locked, and somehow we recognized something about each other, and we shook hands, and I said, I want you to come to South Africa. And he said, I will come, I will come. And indeed, he came. He was being followed by these many people, like they follow Tiger Woods when he plays. And I wondered, what is it? But indeed, it was Jack Ma, and I want to thank you for having come to join us. We have witnessed today the beginning of a new narrative on investment in South Africa. And throughout the day, we have heard how many businesses continue to reap sustainable rewards by investing in our economy. And the reason that so many have been brave enough and forward enough to come and make announcements is because they see and recognize South Africa as an investment destination where they can make money, get good rewards for their shareholders, but also contribute to the development and transformation of our country. The case studies that have been presented do affirm indeed that South Africa is a diversified economy that does indeed present great opportunities across a wide range of sectors and subsectors of our economy. We heard investment announcements from companies in mining, forestry, manufacturing, telecommunications, transport, energy, agro-processing, consumer goods, pharmaceuticals, infrastructure, financial services, energy, ICT, and water. Let me tell you immediately that when we conceptualized this conference, we never thought that we would have such great interest from various sectors of our economy. We are hugely overwhelmed by the interest that so many of you as business leaders and so many of you as companies have demonstrated. We say thank you, thank you, thank you on behalf of the people of South Africa. Now, one of the most wonderful things, of course, which we as politicians have always harped about ad nauseum, is that we want to see investments that make South Africa depart from the mineral complex type of architecture that we have, where companies just come and extract the rock and mortar out of our country and ship it out. We've always said we want to see value add, we want to see beneficiation. So prominent amongst these announcements are the themes of value addition, beneficiation, but added to that has also been innovation entrepreneurship. The investment announced today by Amazon, for example, is a good illustration of how we are building an economy of the future and seizing on the opportunities presented by the fourth industrial revolution. Now, Amazon's re-entry and bolstering their own investments here in the way that they are going to do means that we have now embraced the fourth industrial revolution. It's no longer a concept that we need to be afraid of and need to have trepidation in terms of dealing with. We're now there, and companies like Amazon and a number of others in the ICT sector are going to give us the capabilities, and they are going to bolster the capabilities of our young people, because our young people, by and large, are already there, if not way beyond, and all they need are pathways. And Amazon and a number of other companies are going to enable our young people to get the pathways, to be coders, to be creators, and to be innovators. By establishing a cloud computing hub in South Africa, the company will enable businesses in the region to build products and solutions that are based on new digital technologies. And this is going to be a great benefit to small and medium enterprises. And the investment announced today by Vedanta reinforces our drive towards greater beneficiation, and the investment by Mara highlights the opportunities for Pan-African collaboration, and the Aspen announcement underscores South Africa's capabilities when it comes to producing really good life-saving products for the export market as well. These are just some examples of investments that have been announced today, investments that, as we have counted and recounted and calibrated and recalibrated, know that the investments that, and these are real investments that are going to be made, not just pledges, real investments that many of you have announced here. On a cumulative basis, these investments are worth nearly 290 billion South African rand. And this is phenomenal. This is great. If we never thought that this investment conference would amount to anything, today we can confidently say to amass investment announcements, commitments that amount to 290 billion, that are obviously going to yield a number of new jobs and people who are going to be employed, is phenomenal and unprecedented in the history of our country. And this is going to give our country the lift that it requires. As I said this morning, one of the key challenges that we've had is not only having to deal with our missteps in trying to deal with the problems that we've had in the past. We've had to deal with bringing in investment so that we can begin to generate growth. And this is the type of flood that we need to lift many boats in South Africa. But the most important boats, of course, are the employment of our people. And this conference has been more than worth it in terms of ensuring that we do bring to bear these types of announcements that are real. And these are announcements that I'd like to believe, as a failed businessman who have sat in a number of boards of directors, that these have been discussed, calibrated in the boards, and these are real investments that are going to take place. And as we indicated earlier today, these investments are also in addition to pledges of over 400 billion that we have received from several governments, several countries over the last 6 months. Our envoys, our ministers, and myself have been going around the world, and in the course of these journeys, we've received pledges that we are now going to follow up, and many of these amount to 400 billion rand. These still need to be really buttoned down. We still need to bring them home. But this 290 billion is what is now in our hands. And this bird that is still flying out there, we want to bring in. And that is the 400 billion birds that we want. Now, we have already started a real concerted effort to turn these pledges into firm commitments and commitments into projects on the ground. And it is for that reason that we put out the investment book. We are working to ensure that we resolve whatever blockages that may stand in the way of the rollout of these investments, acting within the context of our policies and our laws. We have also published a portfolio of projects, real projects, mostly proposed by the private sector that require financing. But some of these projects have also been proposed by our various government structures, various government levels as well. Provinces have come forward and said, we have these projects. And they have been truly, truly methodical in crafting the projects that they believe will be able to add to the economic growth in their various areas. The project book is a live, dynamic portfolio that will be updated as new projects emerge, or when some projects make their way from ideas to bankable prospects to funding and to implementation. As a country, we will continue to play to our strengths and build on the comparative advantage we have in sectors such as mining, tourism, and agriculture. This is where, as a country, have had our economy being established on the back of a mineral complex type of architecture, where we have developed quite a number of capabilities. We will play to those strengths, but at the same time, we will also be moving up the value chain to play to new strengths that we are gathering as we move on. We are working to nurture the talent and harness the energy of our young people. As earlier I said, the prepaid system was developed here in South Africa, and it was developed by young people who came up with the idea to develop this, and the SMS one, and the Please Call Me. The Please Call Me technology or innovation was also developed here in South Africa by a young person. So we have a lot of talent, and what this conference enables us to do is to give us the platform to be able to unleash the energies of our young people, especially to be able to fuel the economic growth of our country, to benefit, yes, the youth of our country, the women of our country, and the disabled people in our country, and broadly the unemployed in our country. So this conference kicks off a significant work program for our investment mobilization institutions, particularly Invest SA. And in fact, we are now unleashing a new force in our government structure and indeed in our country to say all of us as South Africans must now go out on the lookout for investments. One of the comments that really warmed my heart was that in many of the breakaway sessions, people were so impressed to hear South Africans talk so patriotically about their own country, talk up their own country, which is a great departure from what we have heard in the past, where we were talking at variance with one another. Now South Africans are talking with one voice, we are pulling in the same direction, and so may it last. That is where we want to be. So all our government departments are now, including various levels of government, provincial government, and we have a number of provincial leaders here, government leaders, many of them who are really driving the economic development in our provinces are here. MECs for finance and economic development are also here, and premiers are here. And we want all those structures of government, including various departments, from policing to health, because all of them have a bearing on the investing climate in our country. We will measure the impact of the investment that we attract and work with business to maximize the potential for job creation and socio-economic development that flows from investment. What we have announced here, we will be monitoring. We will be looking at it very closely to see whether indeed it does have the required and the desired impact that we would like to see. As a precursor to this conference, yesterday the Industrial Development Program hosted, the IDC that hosted a conference on impact investment. This is an important area of investing that we are keen to encourage. At the same time, we believe that all investment can be shaped and deployed in a manner that generates not only profit, but social good as well. And I'm particularly pleased to hear a number of investments that are gearing themselves to also benefit the workers, to also benefit the communities where those investments are located, and in the end to empower the people who work in your companies, the workers, the women, and the young people. That for us is fantastic because it is part of our National Development Program, which directs us to move towards 2030, having developed the capabilities of all South Africans. Today for us marks an important milestone along our journey of establishing South Africa as an important destination of choice. We will derive important lessons from this conference as we prepare to make it a regular feature of our calendar. The choice we're going to have to sit back and look at is whether we make it an annual event or a 2-yearly event. In this conference, we're focused on re-engaging with the business community to make our investment case. And let me reiterate, we have listened and we continue to listen. One of the things that I would like you to go away with is that we are a listening government. When you say certain things, they don't go through one ear and go out the other ear. We sit back, we analyze, we internalize. Where we differ, we will tell you clearly how we differ and where we differ and where it departs from our general policy trajectory. We have reminded our local investors and also the global community of the compelling reasons to direct resources into our economy. In coming to this milestone, we have also enabled our government to think deeply about the impediments to investment and to address them. And as I was saying earlier in the panel discussion, what we're now focusing on is how we can de-risk our economy and enable investors to find South Africa a truly conducive country to invest in. Our investment envoys have brought us tough and frank feedback. And at times they have not been as friendly as you see them smiling and sitting here. They've been really tough. They've brought us tough messages and they have given us valuable inputs and feedback. As we track the investment pipeline and continue to build our dynamic portfolio of opportunities, we will sharpen our investment mobilization tools. And in this regard, we are delighted that we will be able to work with all of you because you have demonstrated in more than one way that indeed you are committed to continue making investments in our country. In the past, there's been accusations against business that business had gone on an investment strike. And today, maybe I can say that the strike is over. Yeah, the investment strike is over. And the gulf and the distance that has been there in the past between business and government, and between business and labor, and between business and communities, I see that gulf closing and closing. The collaboration that we are having now is such that we can move forward with great strides. And in these forums where we meet and discuss issues, we talk honestly to one another, there are no holy cows, and we do indeed make sure that what concerns each one of the sectors of our body politic, if you like, do get ventilated and do get addressed. From this, we will emerge with renewed energy and revamped institutions that will drive us towards our objective of increased investment, inclusive growth, and decent jobs. Thank you again for your attendance. We are truly humbled that this inaugural investment conference has been so hugely successful, and it has had interesting facets to it where we've given people an opportunity to speak in the breakaway sessions, to also come and speak here in the plenary sessions. And it has not been a one-way type of engagement. Lastly, allow me, as you have already heard, to invite all of you to join me tomorrow morning in a walk in Soweto. Now, I grew up in Soweto. I was born very close to Johannesburg, and then we were moved to Soweto, so the better part of my growing life was in Soweto. But I want to take you to have lived throughout their lives, where they were able to make such a huge contribution to the development of our country. There is no place like Vilakazi Street in the whole of the African continent, in the whole world, in the whole globe, in the whole extraterritorial universe. There's no place like that. So I invite you to join me, and there are 500 of you who have already signed up, and it's fantastic that so many of you have been able to sign up to this. And before we go into the evening part where we're going to engage with my good friend Jack Ma, it'll be wonderful if many of you join. And it's a short walk, 2 kilometers. I usually do about 10, but we're sparing you because you've spent the whole day in this conference. But lastly, thank you so much. This indeed has been a phenomenally successful conference, and it is all due to your participation. Thank you very much. You're so good. You're so good. So good.
So thank you very much, Your Excellency. When the day began, I said, today I'm not greeting you as a journalist, I'm greeting you as a proud South African and daughter of the soil. And I think what happened here today has debunked so many myths about South Africa today. In my travels, so many people had said, it's game over for South Africa. But today we heard it's everything to play for. So 3 cheers for South Africa. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Congratulations, Mr. President. You were hoping to raise 1.2 trillion South African rands over a 5-year period. And today we've heard in the first year, you have raised 1/3 of what's required. Congratulations. With that, please may we allow the President to take his leave. And as he does so, may we ask the media to just create a path that he can do so. And may I encourage you all to join the President at 6:30 as he shares a conversation with Jack Ma.
Let's move with Minister. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Perhaps to make it easier, may I ask all the delegates to please take your seats so that it just makes it easier for the delegation to make their way out. As the President leaves, may I also ask you to pay attention to the screens behind me. Behind me, we are going to put up a list of names. These are some of our global chief executive officers who have been here with us all day today. For logistical reasons, we would like them to now make their exit behind the President. So if we could just give it a few seconds and ask everybody to please take your seats. If your name appears on the screen behind me, please could you also take your leave so that we can avoid congestion later on. Can you make it out? Is it really, really small? Should I go up closer? You can read it? Okay, so whilst the global CEOs are also making their way out, let me remind you that at 6:30 this evening on the second floor will be a business dinner where the President will be attending and Jack Ma will be addressing us. and perhaps even sharing some of his investment secrets, so make sure you don't miss it. But now, without further ado, please allow me to welcome onto stage Minister Rob Davies, who is our Minister of Trade and Industry, just to offer us a vote of thanks and to close today's forum. Please welcome Minister Davies.
Well, thank you very much. Mine is quite a simple task. I think quite a lot of it was already done by the President. But I think in the first instance, a vote of thanks is due to all of the 1,300 or so people that have participated in this investment conference today, and particularly those who have made investment commitments and pledges, those that the President indicated have amounted in total to nearly 290 billion rand. I think that just to put that into a context, and there's some people, maybe most of the ones who are needing a translation into another currency have already gone, but 290 billion rand at today's rate of exchange amounts to nearly 20 billion US dollars. And a point of comparison, which I think is worth making, is that last year, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development recorded that there was $3.2 billion of foreign direct investment. So this is both domestic and foreign, but it's a significant boost up in the quantum of investment compared to last year. In addition to thanking the participants and those who've made the announcements, I think it's important to note that this particular event, of course, is an event along a journey that was inaugurated when the President announced the investment drive. And it has been preceded by a lot of work. It didn't just all happen today. And those that were involved in that work, I think, need to be acknowledged. They include the investment envoys that have already been introduced and have participated. They include also the President himself and the various meetings that he engaged in abroad, which, as he put it, have got the pledges that now have to be tied down of 400 billion rand, which would translate into 27 billion US dollars. And then also I think that thanks are due to the agency Invest South Africa, which has played a pivotal role in facilitating many of the investments. And I just want to say that Investment South Africa is not just an investment promotion agency, it also exists to provide a one-stop shop investment service to somebody who wants to invest in our country, all the way through to providing post-investment support. So they're there to facilitate and make those investments smooth. And then I think finally, we need to thank the organizers and sponsors of this particular conference. I think particular thanks to the chair of the Interministerial Committee and the President's advisor, Trudy Makaya, who led most of the heavy lifting that resulted in this particular event today. So I think that those are the thanks that we want to put forward. And I guess that then is the last word, and the conference, as the program director was indicated, is now closed, and the dinner is the next event. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you make your way out, may we just ask of you please to leave your translation headsets on the tables. Please leave your headsets on the tables. Thank you.